Welcome to the Shield Your Business from Chaos podcast, where there's no building, no people, no third-party suppliers, and no systems all combined to create Chaos the Dragon, which is battled by King Phoenix and his shield.
Hi, and welcome to the Kingsbridge KISSBCP podcast. I'm your host, Roswitha first, and with me today is Paul Striedl. Before we get started, we're just going to take a minute to remind you to like and subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen or watch, and join us every 2 weeks for a new episode on anything business continuity related. Tangential fields are certainly discussed, and we typically have guests with 20 plus years of experience in the field, so there's a lot to like and learn from. Thanks again for joining us today. Paul Striedl, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today. Paul and I actually briefly worked at the same company many years ago, although our paths did not cross back then, but I'm very grateful for your time and your wisdom and your experience today. Going to be talking about cautionary tales in business continuity, what to do when your situation sours. So, great title. I think it's very fitting for what we've already tossed around as our topic for today. Paul, do you want to give us a little bit of information about your background? Obviously, most of the time we don't mention past games. You're free to do so if you'd like, but let's a little bit more about kind of your different industry experiences.
Okay, well, Paul Striedl, and this is year 27 of me doing nothing about business continuity. It's my passion. It's what I love to do. I've been fortunate in my last several roles where I got the position to build programs either that were in a very distressed state or programs that needed to be launched from the ground up. So I've been very fortunate that I've been given those opportunities, and I've been through a number of real disaster events, a number of hurricanes. We had an aircraft incident in New York in 2019 that had to be managed through. So I'm really also passionate about the profession. I'm involved with Mid-American Contingency Planning Forum in St. Louis. I'm still the president of that group, and I've been active with ACP, DRJ Editorial Advisory Board, and others. So Great. Thank you for having me today.
Glad to have you here. And for those who might be new to the field and listening, ACP stands for the Association of Contingency Planners. They have chapters nationwide, and DRJ is the Disaster Recovery Journal. So go Google those if they are new to you. There's a wealth of benefits in checking them out. So to get started on our topic, when we talk about the situation souring, I think we mean different things. It can be anything from budget cuts for your BCM program. It can also be things that sort of more personally affect your career path, which I know you have some things to say on. So would you like to go ahead and get us started? I think I'll turn it over to you and interject and ask questions and comment as we go along, if that's okay.
Okay, sure. So the first event I'll describe is, this was something that happened earlier in my career where I was the member of a team and we were at a think tank. So again, not a regulated industry. The company, I think, was very astute when they said, a lot of our customers, within government are asking about our COOP, which is, again, we'll say that COOP equals BCP for the moment. And, this company decided, we're going to create a program. They hired my mentor, who then in turn hired me and another individual. And it was a great situation, build the program from scratch, a lot of unique requirements, which makes the job so much more fun and interesting. Yeah. And then, if you fast forward 3 or 4 years later, the economy's not doing well. The company's looking for things to cut. And they decided, we have a business continuity team, that's been so successful. every group will just update their own plan. We don't need these, individuals anymore. Now, I was fortunate that they put all of us into different roles within the company so that I wasn't tossed out on the street. So of
Hmm.
course I'm grateful for that. But my passion is doing business continuity. It's, I wasn't really interested in any other position, but it was hard to deal with considering how successful the program was. And what I like to think about it is now, with in hindsight, that I think the first couple years of your program, even though they're the most challenging, I think it's the most easy to demonstrate a lot of progress.
Right.
You went from having nothing to having something.
Hmm.
Then once you're in that steady state, 3 or 4 years in, where you don't maybe have those big deliverables anymore, that you know, perhaps that the powers that be, they're not as interested,
Hmm.
because instead of seeing monumental progress, it's more incremental progress. So that's why I believe that when you're talking about business continuity awareness, that you've got to really ramp that up
Hmm.
even as the program matures, because people are going to forget why you were brought in the first place.
Yes, that's especially
So,
true. Oh, sorry,
mhm.
go ahead.
Nope, you first.
It's especially true if your company's fortunate enough to not have any major incidents over this time period because people get complacent. And the money tends to go where the screaming is the loudest. And if you're not funding because the company suffered a devastating incident of some kind, then yes, it's very easy to kind of be sidelined unless you're doing things like, as you mentioned, focusing on awareness, to kind of keep
Mm-hmm.
the importance of it in the forefront
Mm-hmm.
of the leadership team.
Right, right. And awareness takes on many different aspects, because if you have a good business continuity awareness program, there's really three different markets that um, you're sending a message to.
Hmm.
You have your executives, so that message is a lot different than the messages that you're giving to, say, other management.
Right.
And then what you're saying to the rank and file employee. All those three messages have to cater to those audiences.
Hmm.
And, again, this is many years later, perhaps we all could have done more to make sure that at that marketing effort towards the senior execs
Hmm.
was, maintained a high level, so
Hmm.
that they were always reinforced with, what these three individuals are doing are really, really valuable,
Hmm.
and that it's something that we should continue funding.
Now, I'm assuming that
Mhm.
what probably happened at this particular company, and I know I have seen it at other companies, is
Mhm.
when this kind of situation happens where, oh, we're just going to let the departments update their own plans.
Mhm.
That is invariably a bad idea. I have never
Mhm.
seen that turn out well for the company in question because there's no
Mhm.
overall accountability. Things
Mhm.
fall through the cracks. People who aren't passionate about business continuity are in charge of something where, well, it gets pushed back behind all of these sort of operational emergencies or whatever else might
Mhm.
be distracting from getting those things done. And a stale plan is a useless plan. So if you're able to share, um, did it end badly?
Well, I wound up leaving the company probably 4 or 5 months later because I wanted a business continuity job. And it's a shame because this was the type of company, because their retirement uh, plan was so generous,
Mhm.
that a lot of people would just suck up whatever the situation is to stay with the company. But I couldn't be happy in my day in, day out job, because I didn't want to be on the billable side of the business. I didn't
Mhm.
enjoy that in my past career, and I certainly didn't want to resume that. Now, since my mentor still had contacts there, I know many years later when the pandemic hit, the C level, which is turned over probably twice in that time,
Yeah.
was asking where are the business continuity plans. So they went to, we sat within the security group, and security was like, you killed this program 10 years
To
ago.
go. Yeah.
And we have no interest in resuming it. It was painful to go through that process of transitioning those people into different roles, and we don't want to own this again. So I know they tried bringing in consultants and it did not go well.
It's unfortunate, and I've heard similar versions of the story or witnessed them firsthand over the years.
Mm-hmm.
But when you spend that much money investing in a business continuity program
Mm-hmm.
that takes 3 to 5 years to mature, it seems an awful waste for a company to basically abandon the program that they invested in, knowing that incidents of all kinds are on the rise, whether that is natural disasters or other types of events.
Mm-hmm.
Statistically speaking, events that negatively impact a business are on the rise. So if you
Mm-hmm.
happen to be a C-suite listening to this podcast today, please, please, please don't devalue
Mm-hmm.
your program and stick
Mm-hmm.
with it through the times when it might seem like you don't need it. It will be worthwhile in
Mm-hmm.
the end. I think we can both promise that.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. It was again a lot of the the Pharaoh arose that did not know Joseph, because it was a different leadership team than the leadership team where the program was started from. And really, it's almost like the mentality of, you have to think of this a lot of time, is that it's freshman orientation. You've got to re-educate constantly why you're here, what you're doing, what the value is. That doesn't stop. So again, that was, again, from my part, lesson learned.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think let's go ahead and move on to the second set of circumstances that you wanted to
Mhm.
describe. Um, I think we've got a nice combination here of personal experience as far as how it affects your individual career and
Mhm.
path, as well as the impacts to a business continuity plan or program and the potential success of a company.
Right. So yeah, so second company I'm going to discuss is, I got, again, a very fortunate opportunity where I got to really create a program from scratch at a supermarket company. So I was part of a company that had 4 different brands, and I built that program from the ground up. Everything from the offices to the distribution centers to even a plant that made ground beef. So, in your business continuity career, you relish those kind of unique situations that you're thrown into. I inherited several very bad audit reports, and I knew exactly what the case was, that they tried to hire uh, people internally to try to figure out business continuity.
Mm-hmm.
And at a company that large and that complex, they really should have brought somebody in from the outside, which fortunately they hired me. And within 6 months, in the first audit, I got them from an unacceptable level to at least a acceptable level. Because even though maybe my plans weren't done, they saw my framework, my
Mm-hmm.
methodology, they saw the policy, which they never had before. And they're like, okay, we see the ground, we see the groundwork that you're laying, and we're very comfortable with this process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, fast forward a couple of years later, this company decides to merge with another grocery company. And uh, even though this grocery company was larger, our stores were more profitable. So we were told this was a merger of equals. And on the other company, they had very little business continuity. They had no disaster recovery. It was quite shocking, the situation. However, I knew exactly what to do. However, what happens is, when you're going through a merger, basically the way that this company did it is everybody had to basically reapply for their job.
Ooh, yeah.
So, they, even before the merger was happening, they were throwing me into doing work for that second, that second part of the what would become new business. And I was very apprehensive. I'm like, do I have a role? Is there a future? And I was assured there was a role for me.
Mm-hmm.
What business continuity staff they had left, so I would be the only surviving member. I would be given the okay to bring on additional people to help.
Mm-hmm.
However, when you look at their business model, which was a very small shared services organization, but more people within the brands. So the brands would have their own HR, their own
Mm-hmm.
compliance, their own finance people, their own training, so that they shrunk the shared services. That has an impact on business continuity, because when you look at it, each brand probably doesn't have enough resources to hire a business continuity person.
80%.
So the situation that I was in after, performing at an exemplary level, I had my performance review 2 weeks
Hmm.
before the announcement that I was exemplary. I got a better than average merit increase. That as part of the merger, and when companies merge, they have to show the street, and I mean Wall
Yeah.
Street, that they're saving money, that they actually said, well, you have a job, but we need you to take a pay cut.
Huh. Huh.
And I was completely flabbergasted because, you're performing at a high level. You're being told you're doing a great job. You demonstrated to even like audit, which is an independent arbiter in a lot
Hmm.
of cases, that you're performing at an exemplary level. That I was shocked. So you're giving me more work and you want to pay me less than what I walked in the door several years ago. So that started my job search, once again, because in the situation where the economy was doing really well,
Hmm.
and I'd like to think I'm someone who's really, really good at their job. I'm never one of these people who feel that they're lucky to have a job. I refuse to subscribe to that mindset. And that, I don't think I should be paid any more than anybody else, but to actually cut
Yeah.
where, again, I was making less than when I walked in the door. And of course, not being happy with that situation and being able to land another better job within 45 days, I
Yeah.
was very fortunate. And when I went to hand in my resignation, the question was, why would you consider leaving? And, I
Why
was
would
like,
you consider staying?
I was so flummoxed. I'm like, where's my motivation level to want to do a great job when you tell me I'm doing a great job in writing, but you take money away from me? I'm not independently wealthy where, I could take less money to do what I do.
Yeah.
And, it's not a situation where, I would almost understand it more as if, we were in a bad economy. If I was at the company a long, long time and there was that loyalty
Yeah.
of what happened a lot in the past when people worked 30, 40 years for the same
Hmm.
company. And, the interesting thing that the first thing that my supervisor said was, oh, is your child going to go to a different college because he went to a local school?
Hmm.
So right there, I'm thinking they must have looked at my situation. And because I believe you should try to build, of course, the best possible rapport with your boss that you can, that they probably looked at the situation. Well, he has a kid who's local. He'll take this. He might not like it, but he won't leave us. So those are the things that go into discussions at a higher level when they
Hmm.
look at people and what they think they could get you
Yeah.
at. What's the lowest thing they think they pay you to do the job that you're doing?
Hmm.
And then, when I had my exit interview with HR, it was a very interesting discussion because I'm like, look, I'm worth this in the profession. We have salary surveys.
Yes, we
What Cheyenne Marling does. I should
do.
be paid X. You're not
Yes.
paying me X anymore. And they were like, well, this had nothing to do with performance. And my reply back to them was, okay, so what you're saying is there are people performing at a lesser level than me that aren't going through this. And they were they couldn't answer me.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I learned from this was, especially when you're in those merger situations, seeing not just which company, even though they say it's a merger of equals, there will always be one company that will be on top.
Hmm.
You should look at what management's being put in what role. That will help determine your future. Plus, when you look at the business model, because before this merger, they had a very large sales services organization and a very small brand organization.
Hmm.
So they completely redid their business model where, again, business continuity was looked at in a different fashion,
Yeah.
where they looked at, well, what, he's doing a great job. He'll take this because of his personal situation,
So
which
the
which is awful to think at that level those kinds of things are decided, but that's the hard truth. That's
Mhm.
that's business. It's about making money, and they had to show Wall Street they saved X amount of dollars as a result of this merger, and they do it a lot of times on the backs of employees that they think will take whatever they're given.
I think this is a
So
caution. Sorry.
right, so I think always know your worth.
Yes. So I think this is a cautionary tale on multiple levels. First, I'd like to say, though, thank you, Cheyenne Marling, for that compensation study. It's very valuable to our industry, absolutely. And it's important to have that in your back pocket when you go into any kind of salary negotiation where you are able to have that conversation. Obviously, in your situation, it was a little different, but you knew your worth. And so you were able to, make a clear-headed decision about walking away and looking for something else. In terms of the business continuity program, I guess, I look at the situation and I think, what motivated them to shrink their shared services and put HR, et cetera, in all the different brands? Because that's not a cost savings measure. You have, 4 people, let's just say, 1 for each brand for any given possible shared service position. And if by combining resources, you might have been able to get by with 2 or 3 if it was going to remain under shared services. And the same thing is true of business continuity. And why would you risk a business continuity program that was successful by losing your knowledgeable staff? That institutional knowledge is important. Yes, typically we can all be replaced, but if you're looking to mature a program, replacing staff is a silly way to do it if you're able to retain them. And it just sounds like in this case does the company a disservice in several ways. Number one, by shrinking the shared services in general, they're really costing themselves more by having to put an HR person or team in every brand, just as an example. But in this case, specific to business continuity, they're devaluing their program and putting the company at risk by not having oversight across all brands, and also losing valuable personnel with a wealth of experience. And that institutional knowledge in business continuity, as in other departments, can be really helpful. So this ends the first part of our business continuity podcast on cautionary tales in business continuity, what to do when the situation sours. Join us in 2 weeks for the second half of this interesting topic. Paul and I will have lots more to discuss. We hope you found the information today valuable. And once again, like and subscribe to the Business Continuity Podcast, KISSBCP, and we will see you next time. In the meantime, I do want to mention that if you'd like to contact Paul to have a conversation about any of what's been discussed today, you can find him on LinkedIn, Paul Striedl. Thanks so much, Paul. Appreciate it. And we will see you in 2 weeks.
Okay. Thank you for having me.